Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where Executive Coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hey, executive leaders, all of my listeners, I have a big announcement, and I need your help in order to make this happen. We are coming up on episode number 100 of the Executive Coaching Podcast. It's actually going to air later this year in September. And I don't want to just celebrate that big milestone by talking to myself. I actually want to celebrate it with you, my listeners. And so here's what I'm looking for. If there's something that you've heard on this podcast, any episode at all, that has helped you, has changed how you lead, how you think, or how you operate as an executive leader in or outside of the workplace. I want to hear about it from you. Maybe it's a decision that you've made differently. Maybe it's a framework or a tool that you used that you brought to your team. Maybe it's a conversation that you finally had. If there was a result that happened because of something you picked up here on the podcast, big wins, small wins, all of it matters. Because what I really want to do with episode 100 is I don't want it to be me just looking back on the 100 episodes that I've had. I want it to be reflective of your experience. Your stories are what will help shape this episode. The things you've applied, the shifts you've made, the moments where something clicked, that's what I want to bring to other listeners. Because I know if those tools help to resonate with you, there are really good chances that it is exactly what somebody else needs and what they need to hear right now. So some stories that I have heard just recently in the past few weeks. I recently just had a consult with a client that has been a listener since 2024, so going on 2 years. And she was in a place where she started listening to the podcast to use in her workplace and how she was interacting with people. She recently just reached out for a consult. She got a big promotion and now she's a client. I had a listener just this past couple of weeks reach out to me from overseas, from the Middle East, and has been listening to this on his commute into work, which is fantastic. And again, chasing after that next level. Now we're using it to elevate executive presence. And there are tools that I've heard that you've used over the years. Clients interacting with their supervisors and bosses in a different way, the board a different way. I had someone negotiate a raise and tell me about it. So there's all these cool stories that I've heard. And what I'd love to curate is a picture of all of these episodes, tools, lessons, topics that have had the most real world impact, told through the people who actually lived it. Not this highlight reel of my favorite moments, but a reflection of what you, the listeners, found most valuable. So share your story with me. Tell me what you've heard, what you did with it, what changed in your career, your team, the way you lead. A few sentences is all it takes to get started. So to share it, easy. Just go to my website, which is always linked in the show notes, and click the section where it says you can contact me directly, and you can also email me. Really easy. My email is Alicia, ELISIA, at Alicia Cowan Coaching, ELISIAKEOWN coaching.com. And the website, same thing. It's aliciacowancoaching.com. So easy way to reach me. Would love to hear from you. Thanks always for listening, friends. Here's to upcoming 100.
Hey there, leaders. It's Alicia Cowan. Welcome to episode number 96 of the Executive Coaching Podcast. It is, mid-July as I'm recording this, and this will release in July 26th. And so whenever you're listening to this, hope you're having a good season. Summer is my favorite season, and we are in the dog days of summer as I'm recording this. It is so hot here in Florida, trying to stay cool and get to the beach, get to the pool as much as humanly possible. and then just enjoy the season. We've got about 1 month to go before my kids go back to school. They are in the midst of all their summer activities. There is a really big swim meet going on this weekend and a cheer camp. So even though it's not school season, we are still busy with all the fun things that they have in their lives. And so I am in the midst of this season of transition. And I'm in it with my clients as well. I've got a couple of clients. I'm wrapping up some engagements with some clients, and I've just had a new wave of clients that are joining me. And for those of you that have reached out recently for consults, I've been talking to you a lot about a couple of different things going on in changing seasons. And some of those seasons that you are going through as my clients are going into new roles, which is awesome. I have had recently a wave of clients that have accepted new roles with new companies, maybe with the same company, but with new titles, new pay increases, equity, all kinds of really fun, exciting things. So a lot of big wins that I'm celebrating with some of my clients, and some that have come back over years. I have coached them over different seasons of their life and have come back with in second rounds with new promotions and new titles and new levels that they're achieving. So really, really fun stuff. Also, there is a season of some of my clients that are coming that are still on the hunt for the next role or the next phase of their career that they are after. And so all good things too, but 2 different seasons. And helping support all of you through both of those things. So I want to talk today about that hunt for the next role and considering your next steps as an executive. I want to be able to help you through this. And so I'm going to give you some tactical things and what I've been talking to with some of the clients and potential clients out there that have come to me looking for this next role. And so hopefully that you will find this helpful. And if any of this hits home, as always, if you are either in the season of starting a new role or looking for your next one, I do have some open spots. I am currently doing consults with clients to assess whether it's the right fit to move forward with coaching. And I invite you to do that too. So as always, you can go to my website, aliciacowancoaching.com. It's always in the show notes to make it easy to be able to link to that website. You can schedule time with me. We can talk through it, what you're going through with zero pressure, and we can decide to move forward or not. Really easy. But here's what I've been hearing lately from executives in the C-suite levels and senior leadership levels that are reaching out for support to get to the next level. And I want to start off and preface this by saying, at this level, when you're looking for the next role and the next right fit for yourself, it really is different at this level. And I want to say, I talked about this in my last podcast and talking about the difference between mindset and tactics. And I'm going to reiterate that here on this episode, that it really is both. It is, you have to have the right mindset when you're looking and hunting for the next role. You also have to have the right tactics. But a lot of leaders that come to me want to jump into the tactics. The reason why they want to jump into the tactics is because it's how they found the job before. If they haven't been at a senior level of leadership because they ascended to that role within their organization, meaning they hadn't gone out and done the job search externally because they were working their way up, which happens a lot of times, which is great with a lot of the high performers I coach. It's fantastic to stay with a company, have tenure, and ascend to senior levels. But what happens is when they go outside the organization and they start looking for roles outside the organization, they start to apply the same tactics that they did that got them their current role. Meaning they just want to start with updating the resume and they want to fix their LinkedIn and find the magic code of what the LinkedIn needs to look like. They want to go out and apply to jobs. They, think about their network, but it's not always the first thing. They might have to restart their networking and start from scratch. So a lot of this, and someone said this to me in a consult recently, they said this is common sense, but not commonly applied and done well. And so jumping out there without getting the mindset right and understanding the differences between job searching at this level could potentially be detrimental. And none of these tactics are bad. None of them are wrong. But I will say in this day and age, and being at the senior executive level, just applying to jobs or updating your resume, just updating your LinkedIn and going out and trying to get a job through the old fashioned tactics, 100% does not work at this level in the same way that it did. Okay. So I want to caution you against that. If that is your only means of applying for roles, is to go in that route. And again, surprisingly, while it may sound like common sense to maybe some of you as listeners, I come run across it very frequently where leaders come to me very surprised that networking is the way. So going to put that out there. But here's what's happening. So some leaders out there, they're starting to experience burnout as they are going through this process of evaluating, do I go to a new role or do I jump outside this organization? They feel overwhelmed. They start to feel paralyzed because they don't know what decision to make next about their next move. And with this burnout, at times you can get to a point where the pace feels really unsustainable. Motivation wanes. And the demands keep coming especially if you're still in that current role, or even if you're just in the job hunt without a current job, the demands keep coming with no end in sight, which is not a great feeling to have. And so a lot of us were trained to be high performers. The people that are in my circle listening to this podcast, executives, typically are high performing leaders and individuals. And we've gotten gold stars throughout our life for being a quote unquote good student or good kid. And we were rewarded for being well behaved, for performing at a high level, for getting good grades. And we kept that mentality as we moved through the corporate sphere. We've then been rewarded with titles, with compensation, maybe with a prestigious company name that really looks good on our resume and our LinkedIn profile. That's the deal. Nothing wrong with that. But at times, the leaders above us also know this about high performers, that the high performer is going to get it done no matter what and no matter what the cost. So when it comes to thinking about and considering the next career move, that same high performer starts to feel paralyzed. And here's why. First off, the golden handcuffs. This is the frequent one I hear, and typically the primary one. It is scary to walk away from a role where you feel you are very highly and well compensated. The title, the compensation, the prestige of what you have built within that organization. Many leaders know that staying with their current company and their current role is optional. However, it is super hard to walk away when other people are depending on you as the breadwinner. And most people don't want to leave that current level or that current role without having secured the next role. And again, some people are in both camps. They're either within the organization, it's still with employed and looking for a role, and some of them are without a role and still looking. But either way, people get really tied to the level that they were at, to the title that they were at. And if they're in a current role with, working full time, a lot of times they can't find the time and can't even fathom going out and finding the time to look for a new job and pouring all that energy into it. I was recently talking with a leader who had spent close to a decade with their company, and they had built real seniority. Again, I know I'm talking to you as executive level leaders. You get this. You have that tenure with an organization. You've built and got to that level where you have trust. You've got deep, real relationships, which is fantastic. You have that leverage. And this leader was also managing a team that was a global team spread across multiple time zones, but also had this manager who was micromanaging and not trusting and not getting to the point to allow to move the autonomy that they had had before. She loved the company, she loved her team, but she wasn't unhappy with everything. But she was unhappy with enough of it that she found herself asking, do I stay and fix this and try to make an attempt at it, or do I leave it? And with many years under her belt, that's not a small question. The next piece I want to talk about is the identity piece. A lot of times when you get to the senior level, you have worked for many years very diligently, and you've earned a title and you've earned that level, and that role becomes part of who you are. And it can be scary to risk losing something that has become so core to your sense of self. Now, I know, again, intellectually, I know a lot of leaders, you can say, like, okay, I get it. This isn't my whole identity. This isn't who I want to be. But at times that can be really hard to disconnect and so hard to pull apart, because it's a challenge, right? When you've worked so hard for something and you have become something and you feel like it is so ingrained in every part of your life, how do you all of a sudden just walk away from that when it's something that has really felt so closely identified with your sense of self? Challenging, right? Then you layer on the next portion of, if you are a working parent or you are a caretaker of others, which almost everyone has someone or something that they are caretaking, you layer on all of that on top of the job search too. Time becomes one of your most valuable assets as your career goes on, even more so than money. And I know you senior leaders can identify with that. And when your significant other / kids / family / friends start to notice when you're not around as much as they would like, whether you realize it or not, it starts to happen. And then you start to feel that layer of guilt on top of it. Then, if you've built tenure in an organization, you've also built real professional relationships, which is fantastic. But when you're starting to face that question of starting over, it means asking, do I really want to rebuild all of that? And that can feel daunting. And then there is the fear that, is this as good as it gets? A lot of you leaders, again, intellectually understand the grass is not always greener within another organization or doing something else. And so if you leave for something that turns out to be equally rough as your current situation, or big fear, even worse than your current situation, it can feel like that jump and all that effort was all for naught, was all for nothing. And then finally, the work environment right now is so in flux. There are the remote and hybrid workers that are now in so many waves of increases of returns to office mandates that they are facing, that it can all feel very uncertain. And remote work proved to us that there is another way to get the job done. And for high achievers and senior level executives that are also parents, again, / caretakers, going back into the office full time, Monday through Friday, can feel really untenable. And I've talked to some of you leaders that are facing this. And a lot of the leaders that are facing this return to office, they know they need to have a conversation with their leadership team about flexibility. They know they've built the reputation, the tenure, the work ethic, all the things that they feel like they have leverage. But a lot of leaders keep stalling this conversation because they're afraid. They don't want to have this X marked on their back or being seen as the squeaky wheel for not towing the company line when, they might feel like their work is already under this microscope. And so these leaders, they're going back and forth and they're not sure about their status. So the conversation ends up not happening at all. So I just outlined a lot. That is a lot of the reason why leaders are carefully weighing their next step. And when you're facing all these things that I mentioned, all the reasons of why that you might be hesitating, you might feel overwhelmed, what you need is you need two things. You need clarity to understand exactly what you want and what you want to ask for, and then a plan. And this can work on two parallel tracks. The first track, number one, how do you make your current situation more bearable, more tenable, and potentially even better than it currently is so that it actually fits your season of life right now? The level that you're at, the personal responsibilities that you have, everything. How do you make sure current situation can be optimized? And two, how do you evaluate what else is out there and then go after it without losing yourself in overwhelm along the way? Because let's face it, you have the rest of your life to manage in your current job. Okay, so I promised you, simple framework. How do we get there? This is what I would guide you on to work on while you're thinking about these two tracks. So 5 steps I'm going to run you through. Step 1. May sound simple, but again, some of the simplest things are hard to do in practice. You want to know what really matters to you and what is a deal breaker. So first step, get clear. What do you need from your work life in this season of life and where your hard-lined boundaries are? I want you to do this somewhere other than the exact moment where you're completely wiped out and burned out. That is never, ever where really good clarity comes from. This is the moment and the exact time where a thought partner or a trusted advisor will really earn their keep. Find someone that can help you separate the signal from the exhaustion. Okay. And again, this is the type of work that I work on with my clients, is to like sort this mess of the mindset out, is to find out, like, really, really define what you need and put it on paper, and to make sure it's super, super clear about what you're actually looking for. Because when it's all spinning around in your head, sometimes it's really hard to sort out what is important to you versus just feeling tired, hungry, angry, all the things, maybe while you're in the moment. Okay. So step 1, know what matters and what's a deal breaker. Then you move on to step 2. You need to assess where you actually stand. How does your current situation stack up against the destination that we just defined in step 1? So for every gap between where you currently are and then where you want to be, start mapping potential solutions, obstacle by obstacle. Okay. Now, this is easier said than done. I get it, right? So ideal state, and then where's the gap? Okay. 3, after you've identified what those gaps are, then you decide, what do you want to start with? Where do you want to take action, and what is in front of you? Now, if you want to start making your current situation more bearable, then better, and moving it towards the outcome that you defined in step 1, this is going to be really important to prioritize and really think through what feels like it's going to make the biggest impact. What do we also feel like we want to and have the energy to take on? And it might be sometimes the easiest thing to start getting some like quick wins. It might be a more challenging thing, because that challenging thing is going to really make everything else better and easier. I don't necessarily know the exact right answer, because it's so personal to you as a leader to do that. So again, that's where it can be really helpful to talk through with someone. Where do we start? Where do we start taking action? So make sure you label that, right? What feels tenable in order to start moving towards? All right. Step 4. Next, you take that parallel track of saying, okay, let's also evaluate what is out there in the world. You can start looking at real alternatives. Doesn't mean you have to make a change immediately. This is just part of our research mode. This is also where your network matters. The people in your community and your immediate circles are the fastest way to see what is actually available to you. All right. And then this is the work too. Sometimes people don't always see it objectively. I help leaders work through this. Like, where do we want to start? What makes sense? And who can we connect with? So we can make a list and then just start ticking off the list one by one. And then step 5. Okay. The last step in this process is just to set a checkpoint and then decide when you are going to make a decision. So giving yourself a real date to revisit both of these tracks that we just described, the improvements that you're making for where you are, and then what you've learned about the market. Now, the decision point doesn't mean you have to decide to stay or go. The decision point could also mean to continue the work that you're doing because you haven't gotten to that point where you know exactly which step to take. It could be like, yes, I'm going to make a decision point that decides to continue and check in at another decision point. Or you have a decision point where you've like, okay, I've decided this is the move that I want to make. Okay. But that indecision and the like spinning out and the continuing to spiral, that's not healthy. So you have to give yourself clarity, because clarity without a decision point just becomes another form of paralysis and spinning out. So choosing to stay and having made your current situation is still a decision. It's not a default. Okay, so really powerful stuff here. So those are the 5 steps. And I know they sound simple and as we're talking through it, but they are complex in practice. And when I say you don't have to do this alone, I really mean it. You don't have to have this all figured out by yourself. And you don't have to, go it alone without support and asking for help. And I promise you, there is hope in these situations. I've seen it firsthand happen so quickly for leaders to either improve their situation or to find their next right fit very quickly without losing themselves, without defaulting to burnout, to reclaiming their sense of self. And it doesn't have to take long seasons of time. Okay. I have real life examples that I've seen happen so quickly. And so I know a lot of times leaders just feel like it's hopeless and they're alone, and it's just not the case. There is hope out there. I promise you. So if any part of this conversation hit home, maybe the burnout, the paralysis, the overwhelm, maybe the golden handcuffs, or that flexibility conversation that you just keep putting off, that is exactly what a coaching conversation is for. So I'm here to help. If you need it, just go to my website. It's aliciacowancoaching.com. It's ELISIAKEOWN coaching.com. Again, it's always in the show notes. You can book a call with me and I can help you figure out what is your next step. We can figure that out together. All right, friends, as always, I appreciate you. Thank you for listening. I will see you next time, and go get them. Bye.
All right, my executive friends, that is a wrap on today's episode. But before you go, I want to come back to something I mentioned at the top of the episode because it genuinely matters to me. Episode 100 is coming, and I'm so excited about it. I want to build this episode around you, your stories, your wins, the moments where something from this podcast actually showed up in your workplace, in a meeting, in a hard conversation, a decision, a result, you leading with more executive presence. If that is you, if there is a single moment in an episode, maybe a tool, a framework, or even just the small single idea that stuck with you and changed something, I want to hear about it. It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be some big dramatic transformation. I just want it to be real. And so the link to share your stories, always in the show notes. You can just go to my website, Alicia Cowan Coaching, and I'll take it from there. Should be quick, take you less than 5 minutes. And I would love if you would let me share it on the podcast, and it might help somebody else out there that needs to hear it right now. So thanks for being here, episode after episode. And 100 of these episodes don't happen without you actually showing up and listening. And I do not take that lightly. I'll see you on the next one, friends. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowancoaching.com/call.